hope I have that correct. Translates as water is life. But water is not only life, water is alive. And being alive, it has a form of consciousness, a consciousness that we can communicate with. I saw this wonderful video on YouTube. Pat McCabe is a Native American elder of the Navajo Nation, and her Navajo name is Woman Stands Shining. I love that name. And she maintains a close connection to the natural world and had a very interesting experience with water. She said that at her home, water started coming up out of the ground. And at one point, it was flowing at 8 gallons a minute, which is about 500 gallons an hour. It's a lot of water. And since her house was in danger of being flooded, she started talking to the water. Now, this came naturally to her with her Navajo heritage. She said that she kept up this dialogue and was finally able to say to the water, well, if you need to take my house, that's okay, because obviously you have come here to say something, to do something. But it really would be nice if you didn't take my house. And it really would be nice if you didn't go into the street. And it really would be nice if you didn't flow to the neighbors. And then she had to leave home for 3 weeks. She must have had a lot of faith. Because when she got back, what she found was that the water had split in two and gone back into the ground. And so she continued her conversation with the water. And the water started intuitively communing with her. And the water asked her to go down to a lake, which was close to where she lived, and to pray in the water of the lake. This she did, and she stood in the lake and began to sing a prayer, which she accompanied with her drum. She prayed over the water, and the water started intuitively teaching her. The water told her, "It is good, daughter, for you to pray into the water, because when you pray into the water, it intensifies your prayer." I can just imagine this beautiful Navajo woman standing in the lake with her drum, praying in and into the water. Makes me think, maybe I should be praying in my shower. And if you visit it on YouTube, it's really a lovely watch. It's entitled Talking to the Water. Woman Stands Shining reminds us that the water of our earth exists in a closed system. The water that is here was here at the beginning. This is the same water that nourished our ancestors. And as the water of our earth evaporates and travels through the clouds, it can carry our prayers and intentions with it into all of life. This water, this consciousness unites and ties one to another. Woman Stands Shining reminds us that our words, our prayers, can change water. Taking this deeper, let's talk about how words have the power not only to change water, but to change the world. Masaru Emoto, a Japanese businessman, author, and scientist, has done extensive studies on how human consciousness can affect the molecular structure of water. Now, this makes sense to me because I believe there is a form of consciousness in everything that God has created, and, well, that is everything. And the more I read of Mr. Emoto's work, the more I see the truths he is pointing out. He was particularly interested in the effects of positive and negative vibrations and positive and negative words on the molecular structure of water. and his findings were astounding. Now, it is important to understand that the human body is composed of 70% water. We start our life in utero at 99% water. When we are born, we are 90% water. And by the time we reach adulthood, we average that 70%. Mr. Emoto said that to understand water is to understand the cosmos, the marvels of nature and life itself. He started some very interesting experiments. First off, by placing different types of water in petri dishes, the little round glass dishes that are used to grow cultures. And then he froze the petri dishes until the surface tension of the water formed drops of ice, and crystals appeared when a light was shone down on the crown of the ice. And then he took pictures of the ice crystals. These photographs showed that when the water was exposed to different things before freezing, different crystalline forms could be clearly seen. He found that pure fresh water created beautiful crystals, whereas dirty and chlorinated water did not. Next, he experimented with the effects of sound on the water. And he put water in a clear jar and put the jar between two speakers and played different types of music. Then he froze the samples in the petri dishes and took pictures. And in his book, I brought his book. It's very interesting, and there's lots of really wonderful pictures of the crystals. So let's see, where was I? All right, so the music, for instance, when exposed to the classical music of Beethoven's symphonies, the crystals were fanciful, with detail and exactness, looking complete and healthy. Now, this one is kind of funny because when he exposed one jar of water to Elvis Presley's Heartbreak Hotel, the crystals split and seemed to be divided into two broken hearts. It was really interesting. And when the water was exposed to music that was aggressive, dissonant, and with lyrics that were a bit vulgar, to say the least, then it resulted in just a mess of frozen water. There were no crystals. Next, he experimented with the effects of language on water. He put fresh, natural water into jars, and then he wrote phrases like thank you or fool on pieces of paper. And he took the paper and he wrapped the paper around the jars with the words on the inside. And in his book, he said, it did not seem logical for water to be able to read the writing and understand the meaning and thus change form, but that is exactly what it did. The water exposed to the phrase thank you formed beautiful hexagonal crystals, whereas the water exposed to the word fool produced crystals very much like the water that had been exposed to dissonant music. They were malformed and fragmented. The difference was astounding. The crystals from water that had been exposed to positive words formed beautiful crystallizations, while the crystals of the water with negative words looked deformed. Positive words had a positive effect on the water crystals. Negative words had a negative effect. We know that loving words have a positive effect, not only within ourselves, but others and also on the world around us. And the opposite is also true. Negative words have the power to maim, to destroy. And when you look at the pictures in the book, the difference between the positive and the negative words, it's so clear to see. Then In a further experiment, Mr. Emoto used rice and water. He took 3 jars of rice and filled them with fresh, clean water. On one, he taped the word, "thank you." On one, he taped the phrase, "you're an idiot." And on the 3rd jar of water and rice, he wrote the word, "nothing." So each day he would repeat the phrase, "thank you," for 1 minute to the 1st jar. And then to the 2nd jar, he would repeat, "you're an idiot," 1 minute. And he made sure to emotionally connect with the message he was trying to give to the water. And the 3rd jar, he completely ignored. After 1 month, the rice in the 1st jar that had been given praise had started to ferment and smelled fresh. The rice in the 2nd jar that he had called an idiot had turned a strange gray color with a putrid smell. And the jar that he had ignored had also turned that strange gray color and smelled spoiled. There's not a picture of that experiment in the book, but you can look it up online. It's very clear. Not only did this show the results of the emotional transference into the first 2 jars, but demonstrated the result of ignoring something. For the 3rd jar looked very much like the jar with "you fool" on it. It had decayed. This demonstrated that when we ignore something, it can carry the same power as hateful words. When we put that in the context of humanity, ignoring someone, making them feel invisible, is as detrimental as verbal attacks. Now, anyone who knows me knows that I love animals, and I have a particular love of dogs and cats. But I also recognize that cats have been sent to this earth. There's some sort of alien life form that have been sent here to confound us. And the other day, my cat, oh, wait a minute, I can't really say that. He's not my cat. The cat that inhabits our house and tries to control our lives, right? He did something that ticked me off. And so I started to ignore him. And then I remembered the lesson of the water in, ignoring something. So I said, okay. So I went over to him and I started petting him. I told him what a nice kitty he was. And he was so loving and kind. I said, "You're a beautiful and courageous kitty." Now, I would like to think that he appreciated those kind words, but probably not. After all, he's a cat. Now, let's get this really personal. Our bodies are mostly water, and water is affected by positive and negative words, beautiful music or harsh, dissonant music. The adage, "sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me," is not only inaccurate, it is a lie. Words do affect us. Words do hurt. Our words foster beauty or decay. They affect everything in us and everything around us. And what about the world around us? Like our body, the Earth's surface is composed of 71% water. We talk about peace on Earth and how it begins with me. It begins within. We foster peace in our hearts, which fosters peace in the world. Our words are one way to do that. Our words matter. Of all the crystalline forms that Mr. Emoto photographed, he said that the most beautiful was formed by the words love and gratitude. And that is the picture on the front of his book. He said that love and gratitude provide the tender nurturing that is needed by all living things. And it's beautiful when you really look at that crystal. It's so finely formed. Our words do more than convey information. They impact us, others, and the world. The power of our words can lift up or bring down, stir up hatred and violence. Words can aggravate wounds or inflict them. Alternately, words can build up. They can be life-giving. In the Old Testament book of Proverbs, it says, now keep in mind, the book of Proverbs was written 3,000 years ago. And it says, the tongue has the power of life and death. The tongue has the power of life and death. They knew then. And of all the creatures on this planet, only humans can communicate through the spoken word. This is a unique, powerful, and precious God-given gift. Words can destroy or words can build up. How do we use our words? Are they filled with frustration or love? Bitterness or blessings? Complaining or compliments? Defeat or victory? Words are God-given tools that can make life beautiful, but like any tool, they can be misused, either consciously or unconsciously. Be careful of the words you say. You never know which ones you'll need to eat, right? And yes, I've eaten a few words in my life, more than a few, words that I regretted, words that I wished I could take back and never have uttered. But hopefully, as I mature, become better at filtering my words, as I filter the water that we drink, I become better at it. After all, we are all works in progress. So be careful with your words. Once they are said, they can only be forgiven, not forgotten. As once uttered, words are always remembered. Forgiven maybe, but not forgotten. Our words have power. Use them wisely. And I want to end by saying, you are beautiful and you are courageous. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosie. That was great.